Okay, Nigel, we are live across multiple platforms. Welcome to Catalyst Talks. How are you doing today?
I am well, sir. Thank you for having me, Joseph.
Well, thank you for being here. It's the last working day of the week before Thanksgiving tomorrow. So let's just kick
Mhm.
off with that. In this crazy year of 2020, what are you thankful for?
Um, my favorite movie is Scarface. It says every day above ground is a good day. That's one of the lines in there. And I'm grateful that my family's healthy, and I'm grateful to be here.
Well,
So
I'm
2020 has been crazy.
Yeah, I got to reflect that too. We're all still standing. My heart goes out to all those people that are impacted by COVID, either by their health or by their job insecurity. But that's exactly what we're talking about today, which is the future of work and the amazing stuff that you're doing right now with the Cyber Warfare eSports League. Let's just get into it. What is it? What are you working on? And by the way, for our viewers, if you have questions for Nigel, this is live across Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So if you got any questions, drop them in chat and we'll pull them up. So Nigel, what are you working on? And then we'll get into how you got there.
Well, we've developed a game called Cyber Wraith, and we've partnered with this company called Allison Smith, and essentially we've built the Call of Duty for ethical hackers. So players come into the game. It's very immersive, and we validate their knowledge, skills, and abilities, and we match them up to real-world cybersecurity jobs based on how well they perform in the game.
So when you talk about ethical hackers, let me know what you mean by the definition of an ethical hacker.
So in the cybersecurity field, you have what's called red hats, black hats, and gray hats. There is a certified ethical hacking certification, right? And essentially, ethical hackers are your pen testers, essentially people that you give permission to go in and find vulnerabilities. And then the other types of hackers who do that, they will go find vulnerabilities and they'll let companies know, hey, guess what? Here's a vulnerability here, and they usually get compensated for that. The
Yeah.
Army is actually put on, just like a lot of organizations like Hack the Army, so they often use certified ethical hackers.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take this conversation over the next 30 minutes in all different kinds of directions. Where I kind of want to start, which is for the viewers of our network on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, which is looking at the future of the gaming industry and just how enormous it is. In fact, I'll ask Nora, our production assistant and operations director for Catalyst Talks, to drop a link into our website of what we mean by the gaming industry. People who are not following this need to, because if you added movies, television, and radio, being music, if you added them all together, the total value of that industry is smaller than the gaming industry. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, how do we capture the attention of what I call everyday folk who don't quite understand the value of gaming and esports, but with the more important mission that you have of finding that talent network and bringing them together. So how can this cyber warfare esports league attack some of that problem that we have?
So I think most households have someone who plays video games, right? Or is connected to someone who plays video games, right? And we're not just talking about the video game consoles like the PlayStations or Xboxes, even PC-based games, right? What I think that people can do in order to kind of get into this and understand the power of it is just look at your family members, look at your friends. For a long time, even I was guilty of this. We'd always tell our son, hey, you know what, you spend too much time playing video games, right?
Yep.
And then lo and behold, you have people who are making six figures off of this, right?
Yeah.
And
Either
this is
directly by designing it, or they're making six figures because they're getting paid to play those
again
games.
paid to play it, yeah.
Yep.
And these are very notable people in our digital society right now, right? So esports as a medium is poised to really do some great things. So at Cyber Warrior Network, we took a look at it. Like, first of all, we didn't just want to create another matching algorithm for the cybersecurity industry, and we took a hard look and say, how are we going to bring in all of these siloed different groups. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about employers, candidates, or actual students, and then education, right? So how do we do that, and how do we validate hands-on keyboard experience? So I think there's no better way to kind of operationalize that by using esports, right, than using
Yeah.
esports.
And they're competing and they're designing what you're talking about, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, it's huge. It's huge.
And so give me an example of what some of the employers that go to these conferences say when they see the talent that is playing a game, but yet they could be a part of their team.
So one of the employees, this was from our DEF CON tournament. By the way, we're the first esports program, if you would, to actually be featured at DEF CON. So we're very proud of that. But so we had a tournament, and the top 25 out of that tournament, I think it was about over 360 people registered, and then the top 25 from that event, they got an opportunity to interview with employers like Google, Hulu, and one of the things I was mentioning was, hey, you know, how great it is to find kind of like self-taught geniuses who kind of rack and stack against people who have industry certifications and also military experience within cybersecurity. So it was a pretty good, I would say, checkpoint for us. But
Right.
when you're doing the customer discovery process and you hear these things, obviously it's validation, right?
Well, in fact, one of our viewers, Chris, who like you is also former Air Force, has got a question. So I don't know if you can read it, but he says, what gaming companies or platforms do you admire and why?
Well, I'm a die-hard PlayStation, and Call of Duty is my favorite game. I think that all of the platforms, they are really going out of their way to connect with the actual players. But I had a conversation with Razer, their gaming peripheral and laptops. They make laptops.
Right.
I had a conversation with their global head of gaming, and one of the things that struck me was that they really want to get to know the players and build their brand, and not just from a gaming perspective, but also kind of branch out into education. Hypersports does that. HyperX does that as well. They're really, really interested in how we can operationalize esports and then use that to kind of train and teach our future workers.
So, Chris, I don't know if that answered your question specifically. Feel free to ask again. But what I'm trying to figure out now is, as this industry grows and the future of work will require more people with these skills and attributes, your esports league is one way of getting at that. What are the other warning signs or indicators that businesses need to be looking at that they don't have enough? Or what do you think you should be telling CEOs so that they know they need to be hiring now?
Well, we have to cultivate talent at a much earlier stage, right? If you want to capture the hearts and minds and really keep our young people engaged, and not just young people, but just anybody looking for a different way to kind of teach themselves or break into a particular market, I think that we have to explore esports, right?
Yeah.
In today's day and age, it's really, really hard to really capture and keep people's attention, right? So one of the ways to do that is to really create an immersive environment, and then figure out ways to kind of extract learning data and identify pathways to different career paths.
Yeah. So really what you're saying is we're going to get people excited about cybersecurity and the skills needed by treating it as a game and gamification. And then therefore you've got them hooked and you got them solving a problem before they even know it's school or it's hard or it's difficult. And I know that my friend Chris Thomas, who's listening in, he, as an active investor, wants to figure out the companies that are doing that. So what is it that investors should be looking at? And with respect to your esports league, do you have the funding that you need, or like all of us, could you use more funding? What does that look like?
Oh, we could definitely use more funding. One of our biggest goals here is so the game as it is really tuned for red teams, and that's your pen testers, analysts. So that's really offensive, right?
Right.
We need to build the blue team version of it, which is defensive, and now you have that multi-sided operational aspect of it, right? So you can train and test and compete with your offensive folks, and then also do that on your defensive side. So we're definitely looking for partners.
Who would be
And
examples? Who would be good examples and partners? Are you looking at the military, looking at private sector? Just let me know, and Nora will drop those names here in the chat.
Oh, absolutely. I think AFWorks has started some really cool projects. So definitely the DoD military. We actually just did. We hosted a tournament with the cyber warfare unit out at Lackland Air Force Base, and tons of great information. So, matter of fact, when we started this, we started as a military translation tool, and now we're kind of we're looking to use the game in order to take people through on the job training.
In
So.
fact, and I just want to interrupt, and I apologize. I want to come back to this, but you mentioned Lackland and you mentioned San Antonio. For viewers that are watching, if you're thinking about a career transition, especially in the world in cyber, it's happening in Texas and it's happening in San Antonio. In fact,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken, Nigel, you actually were in a cyber position for the state of Maryland, and then you chose to come to Texas and you chose San Antonio. Can you go in a little more definition of why that path was there, and then are there other paths in other places?
Oh yeah. So from 2014 to 2016, I was the Cyber Veteran Program Manager for the state of Maryland, and my job there was to help vets launch businesses and careers within cyber. So when that position kind of ended, and we had to kind of transition on, there was only one place that we thought about: San Antonio, right? The military footprint is huge, and then it's widely considered the second largest cybersecurity hub for the United States. So if you're looking to do any type of business or have any career within cybersecurity, San Antonio is a great option, and it's a lot cheaper than being in the DMV area. I'll tell you that.
DMV being the DC,
DC,
Maryland,
Maryland, Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not everybody is as cool as you are to know that. They were thinking the Department of Motor Vehicle,
Yeah.
which is a cool spot as well. All right, so let's go a little bit deeper into the idea of how these esport games actually play out. What is the user experience? What do you need to have to participate? And who is an ideal audience member? Take any one of those questions and run with it.
So the way the game is set up is that as soon as you have to download the game, once you get in there, it's kind of like joining the NSA, right? You're met with an AI, and it walks you through the entire process. So you go through the academy, and it kind of shows you the UI of the game, but also gives you very basic hacking skills, if you will, right? And then once you graduate from the academy, you're given more options and more tools that you could go out and solve these missions. And there are about 73 missions in the game, but also there's open world challenges, right? So there's open world missions, which is content or challenges that is submitted by the essentially the ecosystem, right? And then there's also bug bounties. So it's
A bug bounty, meaning you found a bug, someone's going to pay you for finding it.
Well, on the platform, it's really bragging rights at this point. However, that is part of our revenue strategy moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. You're a veteran. I'm a veteran. We got a lot in common. So when we're looking at these worlds, is it groups like Bunker Labs? Is it Patriot Boot Camp? What are some of the tools you use to get where you are today? Because the people that are watching this may be wanting to follow in your footsteps. How did you do it?
Oh, so yeah, so you mentioned two programs that's very pivotal to my entrepreneurial process, right? Techstars Patriot Bootcamp met a lot of great people. Matter of fact, my first investor for our pre-seed was from Patriot Bootcamp, right? And then I met you through Bunker Labs, and here we are, right? So these are two organizations specifically tuned to military entrepreneurs. Outside of the military, there are so many programs now, like way back, I think like in 2011, I was actually researching, different accelerators. So I think if somebody really wants to become an entrepreneur, there's tons and tons of useful organizations and programs that they can use.
Yeah. Just real quick, this just popped in. Chris is asking if we can post the site for access, please. So how would someone do that? Nora will put it up on the screen now if we have it, or maybe you have it. What's the easiest way to get access?
Cyberwarriornetwork.com. You go there, you get it.
Cyberwarriornetwork.com.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, we got another question here from the audience. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin's asking, how easy is it for a company to replicate their environment to be gamed against? What's that look like?
Great question. So we do have the ability to essentially create or replicate your environment, and then we can, essentially we work with customers to define the payloads or whatever the outcome is, right? If you really wanted
And
to,
again, part of our audience are non-technical business folks who are worried about the cybersecurity of your company. So when you talk about the payload, what is the payload?
oh, so essentially the executional program or what it is that the outcome that you're looking to test, right? So if it's a known, there you want to test a specific criteria of whatever the network scheme or topology could be, or
Yep.
a particular product, right? Now, if it's something where you're trying to find vulnerabilities within your existing network, then that's another way that we can do it. Now, keep in mind that the game environment is totally offline, not really it's not connected to your environment, so you don't have to worry about someone kind of
Yeah, you
breaking
can
into
host a
your environment.
tournament before you know it,
Exactly.
all your sprinklers have turned
Yep.
on.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now that's really good information to know. How much does it cost to host a tournament like this? If you've got viewers that are listening and they're, trying to think of it.
It all depends on the size of the tournament. So we right now we're essentially we're looking for partners where it's much more of the sponsorship model. But if it's something internal to an organization and they're looking for maybe cyber champions or looking to do the skills gap analysis, then we'll work out the cost with them for the data analysis.
Okay. Shady's got a point here. Shady is actually asking, she's saying, oh, I just took it off. Thanks, Nora. Yes, she says, let's test it out. San Antonio is her hometown and few eSports folks to connect to, and a few, excuse me, not few, and a few. So how would Shady or anybody else get in contact with the organization? Is it right through your website that we just discussed?
They can email me. My email is nigel@cyberwarriornetwork.com.
Okay, well, we'll give Nora a second to type that out. Hopefully we get it right. So let's move on to a slightly different topic, which is give people that are maybe thinking of making a change or maybe making a transition during this time and era of COVID, what could they expect to make as an entry-level cyber hacker, as you call the ethical hacker? And then what is the upside in terms of the industry, in terms of what you see for opportunity, whether it be pay, promotion, responsibility? What does that look like?
So one of the things that I tell people is that cybersecurity as a business itself, they need all levels and not just technical folks, right? So don't sell yourself short if you're thinking about breaking into the cybersecurity industry, right? Second thing is there is a pretty cool website called cyberseek.org. And
Cyberseek.org.
yes.
Okay.
And essentially it gives you career paths, and then that also tells you the salary that you can expect from there. So obviously that kind of differs from place to place. If you look into essentially get an analyst one job in San Antonio, you're probably looking at about upper 60s, and that's pretty good for a starting position, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So there's tons of opportunity within cybersecurity. As you know, there are 3.5 million jobs that are going to go unfilled in 2021.
3.5 million unfilled cyber jobs in this country?
Globally.
Globally. Okay. All right.
Yes.
But bottom line, what you're saying is an opportunity for growth for people that are here in the
Huge.
Okay.
Huge.
So let's say someone's listening to this. They're inspired by what you're talking about. They themselves might be a gamer or might not. And they're like, well, wait a minute. How hard is it for me to actually get into this? So give people a sense of from the point now when they're at a dead stop to the point where they could actually be helpful as an ethical hacker, maybe work in one of these companies. What's the timeline like if they apply themselves nights and weekends, not full time because they got a day job, but nights and weekends? What's that look like?
So it's really up to their perseverance. I will say this though, a lot of employers that we're talking to, they are not so hung up on particular certifications or having a degree in cybersecurity or even any type of IT. They're one of the top things that I'm hearing from all the employers is we want people who are hungry to learn and who are willing to go out and put the effort, right?
Yeah.
So So don't sell yourself short, right? If you want to get into this, right? We've heard success stories where there were people who within 6 months of actually diving into cybersecurity and taking the training nights and weekends, like you talked about, they're getting hired as support specialists for analysts and working their way up, right? Another good thing is that a lot of these companies, retention is a huge issue, right? So
Yeah.
if they get somebody who is dedicated and they will invest in your education. So there's lots of on-the-job training as well. So I
Well,
mean,
that is good. Yeah, that is so good to hear. Right now, I've just joined a new group called the Talent War Group. It's by a couple of veterans. In fact, Mike Sorelli and
yep,
George Randall. You may know them from the community. And what they're trying to do is allow employers to think with a special operations mindset towards hiring talent. And you're the perfect example of what they're talking about, meaning that prior to your military experience, you weren't in the military. So how could you hire for a job when you have zero experience? And cyber sounds to me a lot like one of the situations where if you're a person that's hungry, if you're a person that's perseverant, if you like to solve problems, it doesn't matter that you haven't been in the cyber industry before, or maybe even coding before, because you're going to not only learn what you need as you go, but once you meet the minimum requirements, they're going to train you on the job for even more.
absolutely. My brother, he within 2 years, I'm from the Caribbean, you know this. He came from St. Croix, and within 2 years, before he even finished his bachelor's, he was just hired by FedEx to do
Before he finished his bachelor's, he's
before he's
already hired.
finished. He was already hired by FedEx to do an analyst, cyber analyst position. So, I mean, their opportunities are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so let's pivot here. We're already past 20 minutes. And by the way, for those of you that are watching, Nora and I are trying to work on the latency in the system we're using called StreamYard to make sure that the audio and the video are matching perfectly. And if it is, because I'm live, I don't know, do me a favor and drop a chat that says the audio and video sounds fine. But let's pivot the conversation in the last few minutes. Let's talk about one subject near and dear to my heart, which is mentorship. I tell people all the time, people will be what they can see. If people will be what they can see is firmly imprinted in leaders' minds, they will recognize that they are setting an example, good or bad, for the people on their team. So, Nigel, I'm asking you the question: who did you see growing up? Who did you see along your journey, both personal and professional, that inspired you? What caused you to become who you are today in terms of the people and the role models you have? What's that look like in your life's journey?
So I've been in military 20 years, and that really has shaped who I am. Right when I first came up from the Caribbean, so when I first came up, I joined the Air Force as soon as I got up, and I have been so fortunate to have great leaders. And then when I transitioned from active duty to the reserves, which I'm in right now, and starting to deal with like essentially the corporate environment, the civilian world, I've also been very fortunate to get. So, Joseph, it's an easy one for me. A lot of your success with what you and Craig did and how you guys have paved the way. I've leaned on you tons of times to and you've been a mentor to me. So just I think with my military background, plus a lot of the really good people that invest in what I am doing, and then just for the greater good, that has shaped a lot of what I do,
Yeah.
especially internally with my team at Cyberwar Network.
Well, I appreciate you giving the shout out to Craig Cummings. I mean, what Craig is doing right now with another veteran, Kelly Purdue, in terms of creating Moonshots Capital, which is looking at ways not exclusively to invest in veteran-led companies, but they sure do have a lot in their portfolio. Going back to the point you made about this notion of idea that it was in the military, you learned a lot of these skills. But our audience is far more than just military. And by the way, thanks to Tom and Christine for checking us on our audio and video. So, Nigel, it's good to know that we're coming through loud and clear and in sync.
Yep.
But it's more than just understanding the role of veterans, because this audience is larger than just veterans alone. I want to be very, very clear, and I think this is what you're saying. No military experience is needed to be a part of these programs, to be a part of these efforts that you're doing. Is that right?
No, no,
Oh,
no
good.
military, none required.
Yeah. Now, it's not something that you'll shy away, but it's certainly there. Okay. So there is about a 15-second latency. I'm going to wrap things up. But if you have a question live that you want to ask Nigel, please do so now. That way it'll take about 15 seconds for it to appear on all platforms so we can ask your question. And then, Nigel, if you have time, can you stick around in case a few questions start to come in and then we do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Well, while we're waiting for any questions that might come in, I want to give a personal shout out to the original founding team of the Bunker Labs outside of Chicago. So we all know the story of Todd and what he did in Chicago to be able to create, Todd Connor, to create the bunker, of which Ride Scout, Craig and I were one of the first companies to be a part of their first cohort. But what not a lot of people know is that after the success of Ride Scout, we created an outpost of the bunker here in Texas. And, you were part of those early days, but specifically Sabrina and Jonathan Watwitz, as well as Blake Hogan, they were the original founding, they were the OG, the original gangsters of the bunker, Texas. And what is so amazing is even after Blake moved on to Nashville and he opened up their chapter there, Sabrina and Jonathan stuck with it, Blake stuck with it. And now Sabrina and Jonathan are responsible for national partnerships with the bunker nationwide. And Blake Hogan is the CEO of Bunker Labs, North America, or in the United States. So It's just fabulous, this learning journey that we've been on. But so let me just wrap it here at the end as we kind of close out. We're past the 25-minute mark, but it's just because it's been a lively conversation. What did I not ask you that you'd love to share with the audience, or any other needs or asks that you might have? Oh, wait, before we get into that, Christine did just say, and again, there's always that latency. Can you bring it up, Nora? Thank you. She's saying, what are some computer skills are more important for students to gain as we prepare for the new normal of doing everything online? So there you go. It's kind of a computer question, a COVID question. Take it wherever you want, Nigel.
So I think it's much more of a interpersonal skills rather than actual computer hands-on keyboard, because you can learn that, right? I think even for me, it's very weird. When I first started doing a lot of stuff online, I had to remind myself, hey, look up to the camera, right? And making sure that you have the right posture. So I think, So I think that's the one thing that I would say, even over, like actual hands-on keyboard experience.
Interesting. Well, that's a good observation, Christine. I hope that got to the point, which is you can learn the skills of coding and cyber, but what I'm hearing Nigel say is that the most important skills are still the people skills, no matter what industry that you're in. So what a very nice way to end this. So unless there's any other questions, I was getting ready to ask you, what are the closing thoughts or asks that you might have of the audience? Because again, this will live on YouTube, Facebook, as well as on LinkedIn.
So we are definitely looking for partners, and we are raising around, right? So if you're interested, or even if you would like us to host a tournament for you, we can do that. We're doing these at no cost for education or schools. We have our next event is on December 18th, and that's with Priority Charter High Schools here in Austin. Okay. So find me on LinkedIn, Nigel LeBlanc, or you can send me a note, nigel@cyberwarriornetwork.com. And the last thing I will say is thank you to you, Joseph. I appreciate this. Going back to our question, talking about COVID, I think COVID has humanized business. Although we are connecting through bits and bytes, it's still, like on every call, people will take the time, hey, how are you doing? How's your family doing? So thank you for what you've done all throughout this whole pandemic, and just keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate that.
Well, I do appreciate you recognizing that, and thanks for it. And again, it's what entrepreneurs do. We had to figure out, all of us had to figure out very quickly. Let me rephrase. Many of us had to figure out how to retool what we do. A lot of our peers, as you know, still had to go into work every single day as key and essential workers. But having to figure out how to live in this new normal online is different, and it is uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I'm going to miss actually looking people in the eyes when I talk to them, as opposed to staring at the camera, because it's just the nature of how it goes. But I appreciate those comments. In fact, maybe Nora and I should do kind of a before and after of our videos, you know, from the early days of Catalyst Talks, just 6-7 months ago, to what we've got going now with the awesome production capability that she provides in the background, as well as the on-screen interaction and the audience asking questions. It's a far cry from when I got Zoom bombed in my very first conversation, or one of my first conversations with Eric Brennis. Oh, that was just terrible. But anyway, we all live and learn. So, Nigel, have a great week, especially during this weekend of Thanksgiving. I know that Thanksgiving takes on different meaning for different people, depending on who you are and what age and what stage in life, where your background, where you came from, where your family came from. But if we can take one thing away from it, which is to show gratitude for those of us in our lives, those loved ones around us, and for us this year, for I hope all people, for the amazing work being done by frontline workers in this fight against COVID, and always remembering those that have lost out through job security. But you have provided a great path forward for those people. So for that, Nigel, thank you very much for being here on Catalyst Talks. Enjoy your weekend. Give my best to everybody, and I'll see you soon, hopefully sooner, if we can get past COVID.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Julian.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care. I'll shut this. Nora, do you want to take us home? You take it. You can shut off. That way I'll keep looking and smiling at Nigel. See, Nigel, we're practicing getting better and better.
Yeah. Yep.